Man, here we go. These are 3 things I wish I would have known when I started producing 10 years ago. I know, I'm getting old, I get it. But I wrote them down, I put them in a script, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys. And to the best of my ability, I will try to explain everything. Number 1 was how I should have spent my time. I wish I would have spent more time building horizontally and working with emerging artists and producers. I think on the producer side, I did do a good amount of that. But on the artist side, I just had almost no interest working with emerging artists. I get it, right? Because I wanted to work with Drakes and Travis Scotts and Mac Miller's, R.I.P., and the J. Cole's of the world. I would have never been prepared. I would have had no experience, and I would not have known how to conduct myself in the studio. If it were up to an emerging artist, I bet they'd rather work with Metro Boomin, just like how you probably would rather work with Drake or J. Cole, whoever. And if that's not the case, wonderful, make some great music, because if it goes up, it's gonna change your life. Looking back, the things that I didn't wanna do ended up being the most fruitful for my career. Number 1 was sitting there and shooting YouTube videos on my old YouTube channel, which I'll pop up right here. You guys can go watch, laugh, cringe with me, whatever. Number 2 was connecting with people, getting rejections, not getting responses. And number 3 was traveling to and from places like LA, Atlanta, Florida, New York, setting up studio sessions, flying across the world just for 80% of those sessions to not even happen. We're talking about I'm paying for a flight, I'm paying for a hotel, or I'm sleeping on somebody's couch, or I'm paying for the studio time, and people aren't showing up. But the 20% of the time that they did, that did a lot for my career. In the early days of me making music, once I got good at it, I would consider me making a beat or a loop and exporting it as getting work done. And it's good to have a stockpile of music, but at the end of the day, I'm sure everybody watching this has hundreds, if not thousands of ideas sitting on their laptop. What I should have been doing is the moment I exported that beat or that loop, I should have sent it to somebody, another co-producer who could have gotten it into a song, another recording engineer who was sitting with an artist and could help you turn it into a song, sending it to the actual artist and them turning it into a song. Because otherwise, you're sitting there at the end of the year, you have hundreds or thousands of ideas that, you know, I mean, you enjoyed making them and it's great to do that, but it's like playing the lottery. Post your beats on places like YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, BeatStars, anywhere online that you enjoy. The reason you should be doing that is because if it's sitting on your hard drive, it's not doing anything. This is like newer meta nowadays, but make sure you're using your beats or loops in videos, whether it's on like TikTok, Reels, Shorts, even long form content. A lot of artists spend their time on their phone, so take advantage of that fact, knowing that they could come across your page or come across your video just on the Explore page. Algorithm is so addicting now. We have artists reach out to us all the time. We have huge artists reach out to us all the time because they saw our video. Number 2, what are royalties and how can you make sure you're collecting them? They make this so confusing, but I'm going to put it as simply as I can. There might even be a whiteboard behind me after, or in the edit, some kind of thing, because it's a lot of numbers and this and that, and it gets confusing. You make a beat entirely by yourself. You take that beat, you give it to an artist. They record a song that night and they decide they're going to release it the following week. You now own 50% of the publishing for producing that beat, and they now own 50% of the publishing for writing the lyrics. So now you guys have 50% publishing on both sides, right? You take the beat, you take the lyrics, you put them together. It creates a master recording, and this is where you hear terms like master points or master royalties or masters, whatever. It's so fucking confusing and no one talks about this shit. And for the sake of simplifying this scenario, let's just assume the artist is 100% independent. They're not signed to no label, their record deal. They don't have any distribution. They own 100% of their masters. You are now entitled to 50% of the master, and they're entitled to 50% of the masters. You and this one artist now own 100% of the publishing and 100% of the master. Let's also assume they only released it on Apple Music and the song gets 100,000 plays over its lifetime. Remember, this is a general guesstimation. You can assume the publishing made around $30 to $40 from that 100,000 streams. You could also assume that 100% of the master will make around $500 from that 100,000 streams. What that means is that if the song had gotten 1 million streams, that it would have made anywhere from $300 to $400 from the publishing, assuming it's just getting streamed, and that it would have made about $5,000 from the master, assuming it was just getting streamed only. Now, in order to collect part of your publishing, and I'll come back to that, you need to create a BMI or an ASCAP or a SOCAN or any of those kinds of societies depending on where you live. Meaning that you need to register the song on, say, BMI, including not only your split, but that artist split, equaling up to 100%. I don't know why, but that's just how it has to be. To collect on the master side, you need something like a DistroKid account, assuming that they're independent and releasing it through like a TuneCore, DistroKid, CD Baby, whatever, all those kinds of things. The artist would just add you to the splits. You provide them the email to your DistroKid account, and every month you would receive your payout from Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, via DistroKid. Master side is a lot easier to collect on, assuming that the artist plugs you straight into like the DistroKid, CD Baby, yada yada. Publishing is much more confusing to collect. I mentioned how you can start collecting part of your publishing, and I say part because in order to collect the rest, mechanical royalties, what the fuck does that even mean? You need to have a verified admin / publisher collect on your behalf, aka an admin publishing deal or co-publishing deal. For example, I am personally signed to Sony Music with an admin publishing deal. That means I own all my publishing. However, they gave me money to sign a deal with them, and they are collecting on my royalties. Basically, they collect the remaining part of my publishing amongst the hundreds of records that are on the catalog. I don't know why those have been separated, and I don't know why they're so different in how you get paid, but that's the current state of collecting your royalties. I'm missing a lot of detail if you want to get super granular, but like I said, I wanted to simplify it. I'm sure there's somewhere in there that you could go in and correct and be like, well, actually, whatever. I don't care. I want you guys to have a general understanding of this because it's important to understand how to actually collect the money that your music is making. Not sure why, but in the music industry, people get so weird about talking about money, but then the label, the distributors, the publishers, the DSPs, the artists, they all make money from the music that you're making. But somehow it's weird for you to have an emphasis or care about getting paid. Where it gets even more confusing from that point is if that artist has signed a distro deal for their masters or a portion of their masters, if they've signed a record deal for their masters, because then the label is going to take, on a traditional record deal, 80% of the master, leaving the artist with about 20% of the master, and then the artist distributes that 20%, about 3 or 4 points of that to the producers. So you're talking about the label gets 80% of the master, the artist gets like 16, 17% of the master, and then the producers are left with 3 or 4% of the masters. You see where I'm getting at? It's very confusing. It was designed to be confusing. The more information that I could give you guys, the more educated decisions that you can make. If I would have known all of these things early on, I wouldn't have lost out on a lot of money through not collecting certain royalties. I would have just sustained myself when I was sleeping on couches and in studios and whatever else in the music industry. I would have understood the power of my music and what kind of money it was really making. I didn't collect a single royalty from BMI or my mechanicals or whatever until 2022. I didn't get a single BMI check. I didn't get a single whatever. It worked out for me because I had a bunch of back-end royalties. So for you, even if you're getting $10 a BMI check, 30, 40 bucks a year, who cares? Take the money, right? Or personally have producers to get thousands of dollars worth of BMI checks. It can fluctuate, especially if you have a hit. Number 3 is, how should I brand myself and stand out amongst everyone else? I was able to, within about a year and a half, establish a fairly big YouTube following. I think about 10,000, which eventually went up to 20,000 on my tutorial-based YouTube channel. And then I had about 10,000 on my Type Beat channel. And what that did for my career personally, put about $10,000 to $15,000 in my bank account every single month as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 20-ish, 1-year-old. until I eventually stepped away from YouTube. I don't know why. You know, this allowed me to quit my job. This allowed me to do music full time. This allowed me to buy certain gear that I always wanted. It allowed me to just further invest into my career. Taking that same approach that I did for myself, like the beginning days of Split Mind, AKA Tree Sound, that's what it was called. The first members were Benny X, Todd Pritch, James Delgado, and Beautiful Man, in that order, and then obviously myself. And then it was Dude Clay, Pilgrim, Based One, Holy, and Cody. That was pretty much the starting Tree Sound days. Process that I gave all of those guys back then is very similar to what I give everybody now, right? Steven Schaefer, Jacket, Kiri Gerb, CD, Simbo, Juice, which was, you're super dope. People just don't know how dope you are. The greatest example of that was getting Benny X to make his first YouTube video, which was the Kate Tronada video. I think it ended up at like 250,000 views. It's the first video ever. It blew up and it showcased how amazing he was at producing. It showcased how hilarious he was. It showcased how creative he was. And it was just all of these things that Benny X has spent his entire life working on condensed into this amazing 10-minute video. What that did was set him up to start crushing it on Drumify while also getting a ton of notoriety through the internet. And it wasn't like he wasn't always dope. People just didn't know. And that's the same pitch I give everybody. You're dope. People just don't know. Let's figure out how to show them. And that could be in the form of sound kits, that could be in the form of coming to LA more often, that could come in the form of short form content, long form content, but it's identifying what works for you and continuing to stay at it. Up until now, let's talk more recently. Steven Schaefer, we have been building for 4 years. We took a similar approach. We added him dropping sound kits consistently, which he crushes it on. He makes great sounds, people love it. We added him working with developing talent. He has an amazing studio back home while also having a great studio here. He takes all the money he makes in the music industry and reinvests it back into clothing, equipment for the studio, his car, things that propel his career further, right? Things that make people go, damn, he's living a sick life. I want to be like that, where you're producing multiple platinum records, you're living in LA, in Beverly Hills, great sense of fashion, girls love you, the whole thing, right? Okay. Anyways, that is 3 things I wish I would have known in the early days of my career. Last thing I'll say here is 10 years ago, when I was a 17-year-old kid in high school, senior year, I decided I wanted to start making beats. I didn't know anybody in the music industry. I don't come from music. I didn't understand how to play instruments. I just decided I wanted to start making music. And here I am today, living in Beverly Hills on one of the craziest streets in LA with 2 successful companies, billions of streams to the company's names, multiple platinum records. We're multiple times Grammy nominated this year. We're gonna go to the Grammys. It's gonna be amazing. I say all that to say to you, it is possible.